Welcome back, you guys, to another episode in the VW Bus restoration series. It has been about a month since I've last touched the engine. As you can see, I'm back on my feet, walking without crutches again, healing really well from the surgery, so couldn't be more pleased about that. We're at a point where all the parts are in. I received the shims that I ordered for the bottom of the cylinder jug. I was unable to find any cylinder shims for a 2-liter Type 4 engine that were not in increments of 10 thousandths of an inch. Ideally, I would have liked to get around 35 thousandths. After going back and forth with a supplier, he sent me the wrong part, sent it back, yada, yada, yada. Ended up getting 40 thousandths. So I definitely want to test my deck height with these shims in place today. It is a beautiful day. It's starting to get warmer. It's at least warm enough to where I can open the garage and have some natural light come in and some heat during the day. It's probably about 50 degrees or so, give or take, if you're in the sun or not. So it's nice. We're not in the heart of winter anymore, and that makes working on this engine a little bit more pleasant. Now I've got birds in the garage. I don't even know where you just went. Anyway, so on the agenda for today, testing the deck height with the new cylinder shims for definitely cylinder 1 since it's in place. Probably cylinder 2, and honestly I think I'm just going to throw in either 3 or 4 just to triple check that dimensions are the same on both sides of the engine, both sides of the case rather. And if all goes well with my deck height, I would like to get going on installing the pistons fully with their rings and the jugs. The other thing I'll need to do in a short time frame is restore these engine tins that go along the side of the cylinder jugs. They get put on the engine relatively soon before the cylinder head, so I'd like to at least clean these up today and throw a fresh coat of paint on them. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with this thing, and I'm gonna get started today with checking the deck height again. Let's get into it. Okay, so I've already got the piston installed here. Ran the wrist pin through the connecting rod, so it's obviously connected. I don't have the C-clips in, retaining clips for the piston, nor the rings. Just want to be able to flip the cylinder over with the shim to be able to measure the deck height. So I've got a 40 thou shim over the cylinder 1 jug, and with some finagling, should be able to put this into place like so. I cut up some, I think half inch PVC pipe, and this is going to act as a spacer to put on the cylinder jug like that. I'm gonna put the original head nuts and washers on top of those and just slightly snug it down. Okay, next I'm gonna move the piston to top dead center, right about there. Then I'm gonna take my straight edge and measure the gap in between the piston and the straight edge with these feeler gauges. Okay, so that's actually coming in at about 25 thousandths plus 19, so that's 44 thousandths. That's pretty good. Okay, now I just want to try the same thing with cylinder 2 here. Okay, so I've got cylinder 2 installed. Excuse me, piston 2 installed. Now I'm putting on the cylinder jug. Okay, so I'm happy with my deck height calculation on cylinders 1 and 2. I'm getting just over 40 thousandths. This should give me a compression ratio of about 7.3, 7.4, which I've said in previous videos, it's about factory, and everything, all the other new components I've been putting in this engine are pretty much stock. So I'm not surprised that that's the compression ratio that I'm getting. All in all, pretty happy with that. I think I'm gonna test cylinder 3 just to be on the safe side. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip this engine over and do the same exact thing with one more cylinder. Okay, so before I get too deep into installing the jugs and pistons, I want to focus my attention on these tins that go on the cylinders before the the cylinder heads are installed. I just ran them under the kitchen sink with a sponge and some dish soap, don't tell my fiance, and got off a lot of the oil and crap that was in here. There's still a little bit of oil and grease, so I want to spray it down with some brake cleaner and maybe wire brush it a little bit. It doesn't have to get down to bare metal, but just so the surface is level before painting. Hopefully I can put a first coat on that for continuing work on the engine. That way the paint has time to dry. So yeah, I'm gonna give these a try, cleaning them up. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way those turned out. I feel like I got most of the loose rust off. They should be good enough to paint now. I hit them one more time with brake cleaner just to be on the safe side. I've set up a spray painting area. I'm gonna try not to get something on the tree there. I purchased Rust-Oleum engine enamel, ceramic coating, glossy black paint, spray paint. I'm gonna shake this up and give it a try. Not a big spray painter, so this will be a good practice piece for me. Not bad. That should be good for first coat. Okay, looking pretty good. Gonna let those dry and come back in a little bit. Okay, now I want to shift my focus back to the installation of the pistons and the jugs. I've been going back and forth with this book, just making sure that I'm following all the steps correctly. This was sent to me by my fiance's brother, my future brother-in-law, Montes, so shout out to him. This is a really cool step-by-step instruction manual on pretty much any VW engine for a bus or a bug. What makes it really unique is all the instructions are straight to the point, and they have colored pictures along with every single step. For example, I'll be following this index for where the piston ring direction goes in the cylinder. Really cool. Just thought I'd mention that for anyone that's also following along or thinking about rebuilding an engine of their own. This is definitely a must get. How to Rebuild by Prescott Phillips. So I am at the point where I'm ready to start putting some pistons on. I'm going to do cylinders 1 and 2 first. Some people install the pistons inside of the jug at the bench and then throw them on here and just tap in the wrist pin. I'm going to follow the book and put the pistons on first and then compress the rings when they're aligned like I like, and then put the jug on afterward. Builder's choice. I like that this manual has step-by-step instructions, and I'm just gonna follow along with it. So here I go. Okay, I've got my retainer clip put in. I've got the wrist pin partially put in and lubed. That way when I go to install the piston, I just need to tap it all the way until it hits the retaining ring, retaining clip, and then install the other retaining clip on the other side, which removing those was a bit tricky. So I'm gonna guess installing them will also be a little difficult, but we will see. Alright, pistons 1 and 2 are installed, as well as their rings, wrist pins, and retaining clips. Now I just need to do the same thing for cylinders 3 and 4. Okay, I've got all 4 pistons installed, looking nice. Rings, retaining clips, all there. Now I'm gonna go back to the book for a little bit, just make sure I've got orientations right of rings. Then I will be cleaning up these cylinders with some brake cleaner and clean shop rags. I will then be compressing these rings once I've got the orientation right, and I'll be setting the jugs on top. Almost forgot about these guys. Dried up pretty well. I got a second coat of glossy black on there as well. Okay, I've used a little brake cleaner, carb cleaner, and cleaned out the insides of the cylinders. I've got the piston rings indexed in the direction that the book says on cylinder 1, and now I want to give setting this jug a try. So that's going to require me using this ring compressor and applying a little bit of assembly lube on the inside of this jug, as well as some sealer to the shim on the bottom. How the hell is that supposed to work? If I leave this on, try to put the jug over the top, this is too wide. In the book, the guy is using plier style ring compressors. So I think I either have to modify this by compressing pliers or take these pistons off again and compress them all at the table. Damn, I think I'm just gonna go look for those pliers. Okay, we are back. I placed an order for a special ring compressor plier tool from Amazon because I could not find anything at the local parts stores that had something like this. Here's what we got. Another crappy Amazon tool case, a bunch of bands, I guess you'd call them, of various sizes for compressing, and this special plier. So goal of today is going to be to use that tool to compress these rings around the piston as it sits, and hopefully be able to slide these cylinder jugs over top the piston while I have the rings compressed. The only finicky or challenging part, well, the rings are going to be finicky and challenging, but in addition to that, I have to apply this aviation sealant to this shim to act as a gasket at the bottom, as well as compress the rings and slide it over top the piston. So we'll see how that goes. It might get a little sticky, and it would definitely be easier with 2 hands. All in all, I'm kind of thinking if you're doing this, kind of following me, I would try to do the bench method of putting the pistons in the jugs ahead of time, and then coming over here and holding the jugs and pushing the wrist pins through. I would do it that way. I'm gonna give this a test run without the aviation sealant first and see how it feels just compressing the rings. Okay, this is proving to be extremely frustrating and difficult with one person, man, just holding this steady with the pliers and angled correctly, and having the other hand try to put the jug on. It's really hard not to put a little scratch in your piston, and I'm worried about hitting the rings on the piston with the bottom of the jug, so I think I'm gonna take 1 step back to go 2 steps forward and remove these pistons and install them in the jugs on the bench. The other reason this is difficult is because these are adjustable. There's so many options. If this was, let's say, welded to one of these rings, it would be much easier to control with one hand. Now that I have the pistons out on the bench, I'm going to compress the rings using the compressor tool that I originally had, and after I get them in the direction that I like, press them down into the jug, and then insert the wrist pin through the bottom in preparation for putting it on that way. Okay, so got pistons compressed in their associated jugs. Now the challenging part will be steadying this entire assembly, trying to hammer the wrist pin through the connecting rod, and putting that aviation sealant on this gasket at the same time. I'll put the aviation sealant on first and then try and take the entire assembly and place it on here and tap the wrist pin through the connecting rod at the same time. I may need a second set of hands. All right, so got a thin layer of aviation sealant put on the gasket slash sim that exists at the bottom of the jug, and with the help of my beautiful fiance, we're gonna try to lower the cylinder jug and piston all in one shot. She'll hold it in place and I'll tap in the wrist pin through this connecting rod. Finally, she is starting to come along, being built up. We've got all 4 cylinder jugs in with the pistons orientated in the right direction, piston rings indexed correctly. I would love to get the cylinder heads on for tonight. I am soon going to be pressed to either come to a decision to buy new hydraulic lifters or start the process of bleeding these. These will be needed very soon. For tonight, I would love to get these on and at least just pressing down on these jugs. That way I can turn over the engine without these jugs popping up, and the sealant at the bottom will have a chance to kind of settle in. So that'll be the goal for tonight, and it should look pretty good when we're done. That'll be it for tonight, but would you look at that? Wow. This is the type of progress that makes me excited to work on this thing again. Sometimes you go a while and you're doing a lot of work, but nothing really changes visibly, and it's the past couple days that have been really satisfying to watch come together with this thing. So a little bit of struggle with the pistons and the rings, getting them into the cylinders as far as order of operations, but I'm really happy with where we're at. Next steps will be getting those tins that I painted up on, and I'll have to prime these hydraulic lifters because those go in, and then the push rods, and then the pushrod tubes, which are also nice and shiny, will add to the look of this thing. So I'll get to that within the next day or two. That's it for tonight. Stay tuned. All right, guys, it has been 2 days since I've last recorded. I just received 8 new hydraulic lifters. I was in the same predicament as I was in with some of the other parts of this engine, where I didn't want to cheap out and wonder what if as I rebuild this thing. So here we are. I got them. Now I don't have to worry about using used hydraulic lifters. I can install these, and the only downside is I have to bench bleed them before I put them in. But now that I have them, I should be able to install the lifters. I'll install the black tin that I so nicely painted, and then the pushrod tubes, rocker arm assembly. Yeah, that'll be a good amount of progress for now. To begin this video, I am going to bench bleed these lifters. Okay, I just set up my table for disassembly of these new lifters, and I may be in luck because I think these are already bled. The package was covered in oil, and I just took a pushrod and tried to push down on it on the workbench over there, and it is rock hard. So I may be in luck. I may not have to bleed all of these. One observation to make, the new ones look a hell of a lot better than the old ones, so I am glad I'm doing this. I'm going to disassemble one of these just to be sure that my guess that they're already bled is correct. And if this one's good, then I can just slap some assembly lube on these and place them in the engine. Now, I've already been here once, so I have a pretty good understanding of how these come apart. Okay. Wasn't able to capture on video there, but I was able to confirm that there is oil inside of these new lifters. So, at this point, I can apply some assembly lube to them, insert them into place so they rest on the cam there, and then I can begin work on the push rods and the pushrod tube. Almost got me. Almost forgot about the tin, the notorious tin that everyone forgets. Okay, realized like halfway through recording that probably wasn't the best angle to record. It was probably a lot of my back, but pushrod tubes are in. They are looking great. I put on that aviation sealant, wiped off the excess on both this side and that side, and they're looking good, feeling good, feel very sturdy. Love the finish, looks great. I tried my best not to scratch it up. As you can see, it was kind of inevitable with those pliers. I used a shop rag and some electrical tape on there, and it still scratched it a little bit, but it'll be at the bottom of the engine, so not too worried about it. Still looks great. Okay, another day of bus work. It is a beautiful day. Romas is here working on his yellow bus, doing some brake work, and I have just cleaned off the rocker arm assemblies that were a little dirty from before. Them, as well as the push rods, are ready to be installed, so that's the first thing I'll be working on. Okay, got the rocker arm assemblies installed on all 4 cylinders. Got push rods installed. I've got the nuts holding them in torqued down to spec, 10 foot-pounds for the Type 4 2-liter with fuel injection. And I've got the valve clearance set to 0.06 of an inch on cylinders 1 and 2. Now I'm going to put the valve cover on with the gasket. You're supposed to use some gasket sealant. Chances are I'll be opening this valve cover up again, so I'll put the sealant on once it's on there for good. So happy to close this up and keep adding to the look of this thing. Okay, it's nighttime, same day. I forget where I left off, but I was able to get all of the rocker arms seated on both sides. When I was in the process of adjusting the clearance on the valves on the cylinder 3 and 4 side, I noticed that I was pulling the screw back really far to get 0.06 of an inch. And then I realized that the rocker was actually pushing the push rod down, and that's telling me that the hydraulic lifters I installed are now loose of oil, so they're not primed anymore. What I am theorizing is that I left the engine sitting overnight with cylinders 1 and 2 upright and cylinders 3 and 4 down. And I'm guessing that the oil leaked out of the hydraulic lifters and is now making the lifter compressible. So I don't know if checking the valve clearance at that stage is necessarily the right thing to do, or if I'm doing something incorrectly. I'm going to pass on anything valve related at the moment and continue on until I get some clarity. This is one of those things that I gotta reach out to the Facebook group forum, and please, any experts watching this video, feel free to comment and give me advice. But as you can see, I'm dealing with moving hydraulic lifters, and that is making it very difficult to adjust the clearance on these valves. There's now a gap between the top of the push rod and where it meets the rocker arm, thus making it very difficult to get 0.006 of an inch correctly. So with that in mind, I'm going to keep moving forward until I get some clarity on how exactly to set valve clearance with lifters that aren't primed. My next step will be to install some of the oil accessories like the cooler and the mount for the oil filter, as well as the pickup, the strainer, and whatever you call this thing, the viewport. So that's what I'm going to work on tonight. I'm also getting dangerously close to needing this fan housing shroud, as well as a lot of these tins here. So I think tomorrow I'm going to spend a good part of the day cleaning up this manifold, this big tin, all these accessory tins for the engine, and painting them black, because I will need them very shortly. Okay, I'm now going to install the strainer. I will first place one paper gasket, like so. Then in goes the strainer and another gasket. And then this cover. Then this nut and a little crush washer go on top. Now, a lot of people are extremely terrified of this nut because it's supposed to be torqued to 9.2 foot-pounds and nothing more, because if you break this, you will have to split the case halves again. So for some reason this bolt appears to be sticking out too far. Oh boy, is the pickup not in the position it's supposed to be? It's like bottoming out without actually sealing the pickup. Jeez, I did not think this would be something that would be a headache. What the hell? What on earth is going on? Okay, well, not really sure what's going on. The nut I have is either not long enough to push this cap for the pickup strainer down, or this thread, which is attached to this entire pickup assembly inside the case, is sticking out too far. In which case, it could be resolved by loosening the bolt on this side that kind of holds this assembly in place, or something's wrong with the location of that pickup and requires the cases to be split again. I may just be thinking the worst and I need to go back to the drawing board. So that's going to be it for tonight, and I will see you most likely tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day. I went back to the drawing board, and basically what I've concluded is mine's not right. Why? I'm not exactly sure. All I can do is kind of try to loosen up that bolt that we put in. I'm pretty sure we were conscious of not over torquing that bolt, because if you do that, then it's a Volkswagen Type 4 total disaster where you have to disassemble everything and split the case again, start from scratch. So I'm going to try to do that and be really careful and see if I can get this just to wiggle a little bit. Okay, I appeared to have lowered this a little bit. I saw the hole for the mount of this pickup tube. I believe I've got the bolt reseated now. Just need to torque it to 14, not a bit over that. And I think it should be okay. Done. Now let's give that a try. gasket, strainer, gasket, plates, nut and crush washer. Beautiful. Much better. Wow. It's amazing what going back to the drawing board can do for your mental status. Done. Whew. Okay, next I just want to get this cap on. Should be pretty straightforward. I've said that before though, so we'll see. Okay, so at this point I've got all the oil accessories that I'd like to get on the engine. I'm going to be needing my tins and that fan shroud pretty darn soon. I think I'm going to spend the rest of today doing some prep work on these big tins here, this intake manifold, these intake tubes here, and possibly running to the hardware store to get some paint. It's going to take a lot of time of cleaning and old paint removal and rust removal, cleaning up the surface. So for now, that's the engine work for today, I believe, and we'll do some restoration work in the meantime. Okay, so I've pulled out from storage all of the items that I believe will require some serious cleaning, wire brushing, sanding, and paint. You can see what I've got going on for the fill tube for the oil. Looks pretty good. That's just a first coat. Just wanted to take a little bit of a before shot to show you. Okay, it has been 2 weeks since I last filmed that footage of all of my parts being prepped for paint, and what a tremendous amount of labor it is doing all of that. Ton of wire brushing, sanding, prepping, and eventually painting all of that material. However, I am extremely happy with where we're at. Check this out. There ended up being many more items that I wanted to paint than I just laid out on the floor there, and I decided to get a little creative with some of the things that I painted. These tins that go over top of the cylinders that have the spark plug holes in them, I took a little white paint marker and highlighted the cylinder numbers as well as the engine number and firing order here. I decided to paint the intake tubes red because I like the color at the parts store. I think they look pretty damn sweet. I am very happy with how this stuff came out, and there's still more work to do. Also, I paid to have that fan shroud vapor blasted, and look at this. Unbelievable. I have it drying right now because I put a coat of clear on it, but wow. Completely unrecognizable from how it was in the last clip. I also took apart the exhaust and decided to paint that black. And in the meantime, with painted mounts, I also installed the engine mounts, the thermostat and pulley, which I did test, and the oil pressure sensor. So, did a little bit of work, wish I filmed it more. Here we are. So as you can see, tons of items, lots of things still drying, a couple things still more to paint. That's going to be it for this video. Next video, I'll be able to really start assembling a lot of the stuff that you see. I'll have the satisfaction of knowing that every single item that's going on here, every bolt, every washer is going to be restored to some extent. So I think at the end of the day, I'm really going to be proud of this build. Fingers crossed everything goes smoothly. Thanks for watching, guys. Any comments, suggestions, likes, always appreciated. We will see you in the next one. Peace.